Hey everyone, I'm Jennifer Petoff and this is Catalina, and we're excited to be here at SREcon today to talk to you about the work that we've done here in Ireland to recruit new grads, so recently graduating students into Google SRE in Ireland, or what I like to think of as catalyzing the circle of life. And I don't know why, but this sort of Lion King reference just really felt appropriate to me, and we'll see what you think afterwards if you agree. Catalina can attest, I've actually broken into song in the office, like badly off key. I am not a good singer. I promise not to subject you to that. But let's jump into our story now about how we've catalyzed new grads becoming new SREs. All right, quick intros, just to go a little bit beyond what Daria had to say. Hello, my name is Jennifer Petoff, AKA Dr. J. The Dr. J comes from the fact that I have a PhD in chemistry from back in the day. I've been at Google for 16 years now and lead learning and development programs for GCP and technical infrastructure. That includes SRE EDU, which I've spoken about at previous SREcons. I actually founded what we call the Google Tech IE University Outreach Program. Fun fact for the hallway track, so I'm a part-time travel blogger at Sidewalk Safari. I also have a minor obsession with photographing doors, which makes me very excited to be back in Dublin today, home of the beautiful Georgian doors. Catalina.
Hi everyone, my name is Catalina Rete, and I'm super excited to be here today and to present alongside Jennifer. A little bit about myself. I am from Romania, and I came to Dublin to study computer science at Trinity, where I did a bachelor's and a master's. During that time, I alternated between Google Dublin and Zurich, doing a few internships. I guess they're doing something right, because I kept coming back. And then now I'm celebrating my 2 years anniversary since joining full-time. Shortly after joining, I decided to kind of give back to the community that helped me reach a full-time position at Google, and I became an active participant of the Google Tech IE University program. And I guess a bit of a fun fact about myself, I have a strong passion for arts and crafts, which means I have a new hobby pretty much every week.
Good fodder to talk about during that hallway track. All right, so let's start out with what I like to think of as the million-dollar question, or the million-euro question in this case. Can we bootstrap new grads into new SREs? And we know SRE principles and practices, large system design, and building for scale are not typically taught in university, or at least not consistently across all schools in all countries. So what would it take to actually interest students in the profession and equip them with the skills needed to succeed right from the get-go? And to level set, let me show you what our starting point was on this journey we're going to talk about today. So when we asked this question, can we bootstrap new grads into new SREs, we were actually hiring very, very few students into SRE roles, at least from universities and institutes of technology here in Ireland. And I'll get to what the different colors on this sneak peek of the graph are, but for now, all you need to know is that we weren't hiring a ton of interns or full-time folks into SRE roles. So why might that be? So, why wasn't there this natural flow of candidates into SRE roles? We already talked about the curriculum issue, but we also had to think about this and came up with 4 key challenges. So first of all, applicants. Students just weren't applying to SRE roles. Resume or curriculum vitae quality was another challenge that we identified. So the CVs that we were getting from students were not enabling them to stand out among applicants and land that interview. Interviews were also a challenge. When students were being selected to interview, they weren't routinely doing well in the process and advancing to the internships and ultimately to full-time positions. And the final challenge that we identified was simply bandwidth. Were we actually paying enough attention or spending enough effort on these challenges to actually improve the situation? And I mentioned earlier, I'm a scientist by training, and I love to apply the scientific method in non-traditional ways. So as a starting point to begin to address some of these challenges, we formulated hypotheses about why each area might be challenging, and then from there we can formulate some solutions. Why might applicants be an issue? Like, why are we not getting applicants? One hypothesis could be, students just weren't aware that Google hires engineers in Ireland. It could be that students were actually afraid of our interview process or the general tech interview process. Or it could be that students just simply don't know what the heck SRE is. From a resume or CV quality perspective, why might that be a challenge? It could be, hypothesis one, students weren't actually getting any practical coding experience or enough practical coding experience outside of the classroom. It could be that students were actually not trained on what, large American tech companies were hoping to see on a CV, on how to write a compelling CV. And it could be that students just, you're at the beginning of your career, you don't necessarily have a lot of stuff to put on that CV, so it can be hard to assess students, on paper, so to speak. Interview-wise, once again, hypothesis, students perhaps aren't getting enough practical coding experience outside of the classroom, could be contributing to interview challenges. Students might not be talking through their thought process, so not giving the interviewers enough of that signal to really make a decision on. It could be that students aren't getting enough experience just coding on the spot, so just getting in there and doing it on the spot. Or it could be that students are just simply getting nervous. I mean, I've been interviewing for years, and it can be nerve-wracking, don't you think?
For sure.
Okay, and finally, with the last challenge area, bandwidth, our key hypothesis here was that if we invested more effort in reaching and helping students in Ireland, the hiring results would actually improve. All right, so based on these hypotheses, we formulated solutions. So for example, if our hypothesis was correct that students didn't know that Google hired engineers in Ireland, or if they didn't know what SRE was, we could address that with signal boosting events. So we proposed to run a large-scale open house at our offices in Dublin, as well as sending Google SREs out to campus to do tech talks. If our hypothesis was correct that students simply didn't know what to put on their CV, we believe we could address that with a workshop that specifically gave advice on what tech companies, and in particular American headquartered tech companies, are looking for. And we incorporated that CV skills workshop into the open house, along with some demo interviews as well. And if our hypothesis was correct that practical coding experience was the issue, we thought we could address that by running algorithms workshops, code retreats, and we also thought that by sponsoring coding competitions, this would signal to students that the importance of really getting hands-on experience at solving problems with code. And finally, if awareness of SRE as a profession and practical coding experience were impeding efforts to recruit new grads, we thought focusing on internships could really help. The barrier to entry for internships or placements tends to be lower, both for the student and for the company. And in some ways, it's a great way to try before you buy SRE as a full-time career choice. Of course, all of these activities cater to our hypothesis that if we invest more effort, we are going to improve the results. All right, so how far have we come? Hypotheses, proposed solutions are all well and good, looks great on paper, but how did this actually work out in practice? And I showed you that sneak peek of the graph at the beginning of the talk, and you saw we were doing very little new grad hiring out of universities and institutes of technology here in Ireland. So how far have we come? How long did it take? So here's the full graph. And you can see that over the course of 7 years, we increased the number of students hired from universities and ITs in Ireland by more than tenfold. And these improvements were collectively across a number of different internship programs that we run and different types of full-time roles. So we're really proud of what we've been able to accomplish in it took a long time, but we'll talk a little bit about how we've been in it for the long haul. All right, so now that I've shown you what we've been able to achieve, let's talk a little bit about what we learned along the way and that hopefully you can apply in your own organizations as well. I believe that we all benefit by promoting SRE as a profession. And we're also going to talk about some success stories that will intersperse along the way, some specific success stories, or as I like to call it, who we've met along the way. All right, so first and foremost, the first thing that we learned was that networks and social media are important amplifiers. So we actually set up a dedicated hashtag that students could tune into to learn about events, placements, educational material. And I use the hashtag to reinforce the importance of practical experience outside the classroom and how that's important to landing an internship or a full-time role in tech. And I also use the hashtag to share CV and resume best practices and tips. We also found that cultivating contacts among faculty and career services was also super important. It's key if you want to raise awareness about SRE, about placements, about things that are important to a career in industry after graduation. And I actually also found, connecting on LinkedIn was super helpful. I always encourage students to connect with me on LinkedIn to forge deeper connections, drive awareness of events, placements, resources that might help them. And it's funny, this actually worked so well at one point that career services at a couple of schools in Ireland were actually encouraging students each year to reach out to Jennifer if you're interested in looking for jobs at Google. I kept getting random inbound LinkedIn requests, and when I asked what was driving it, that's what they said. My career services person said, hey, talk to Jen. And finally, we also found that by taking time to reply to inquiries from those we connected with was super useful. It helped. I think it helps students to feel like individuals rather than we're trying to market to you and market opportunities. And I think it was helpful in building trust in the process as well. So I'm going to hand it to Catalina to talk about our first success story.
So let's delve into a success story, one of the many that I will be telling you about throughout this talk. I would like you to meet Adam Gillesen. We are actually in the same team at Google, so I'm super happy to share his story here. Adam did a bachelor's in computer science at University College Cork. Then he attended one of the first Google Tech IE open houses at the Google offices in Dublin. Following that, he participated in Ireland's CPC, and for those who don't know, this is a competition that stands for All Ireland Coding Competition, where Google regularly sponsored prizes for the winning teams. Adam also attended one of the algorithms workshops. All these events were heavily promoted via the dedicated hashtag that Jennifer just mentioned and all the contacts at the universities. And finally, after doing a placement at DCU, Dublin City University, Adam did a 6-month internship at Google in Dublin, and then he became a full-time XML SRE. This is the team that we both share. And since then, he's been steadily growing his career, and now he has just been promoted to staff SRE.
Cool, so we've met Adam. Now let's talk a little bit about another thing that we learned along the way was that basically accept a little bit of toil for the greater good. We all know that SREs hate toil, we loathe toil. However, in a case like this, it's so important to treat people as individuals, reply to inquiries, help where you can. This is not a classic SRE kettles, not pets situation. You want to take time to provide that personal touch. You'll follow up with students who are successful in your internship process or in securing a placement or landing a full-time role. In addition, follow up with the others who were not selected after interviewing or who declined your offer to take another one. Congratulate them on their success going elsewhere. We also found it's super helpful to keep meticulous records. You want to show incremental progress in the short term while recognizing that this type of program is a really long-term commitment, and we're in it for the long haul. Another thing that we found to be important and that we learned was it's important to take steps to build a diverse pipeline. And what are some of the ways that we can do this? So first of all, let's look beyond the top schools. Before we started this particular program, any hires that we did happen to get came from places like Trinity College Dublin, TCD. It's a school that's not only in our backyard, but one of the top CS programs in Ireland. And I'm proud to say that over the course of the 7 years, we've brought on board interns and full-time hires from nearly every university and institute of technology across Ireland. Another great way, not only to build a diverse pipeline, but just to get the word out about what you're doing, is to partner with student groups. And I see some Red Brick representatives in the audience, some UCC NetSoc folks in the audience that worked with over the years who are now SREs in the industry. But also it's useful as well to research student groups that may be aligned with populations that are underrepresented in tech, so women in tech groups and things of that sort. Show up at events. So, it could be women in STEM events, International Women's Day events, different types of opportunities like that. And then finally, leverage any employees that you may have from underrepresented groups. So, for example, I know when I speak at events that are targeted more to women in tech, I get more people coming up to me afterwards, and we kind of have that affinity, and perhaps get more requests to connect than my male counterparts. So now I'm going to turn it back to Catalina.
Yes, so now I get to present my own success story. So in my first year of college here in Dublin, I went to the open house event, and Jennifer was right. I had no idea what SRE was. I was like, oh, engineering, okay, I guess this is a position I can apply for. But that's where I met some fellow students who were in the open house student panel. And then when I met them in college, I asked them about the application process, and they encouraged me to apply in the first year. But obviously in the first year, I hardly knew anything about data structures and algorithms, so I failed the first interviews. But of course, afterwards, knowing what the interviews look like, that helped me prepare. And then I also attended one of the algorithms workshop, again, ran by this program, following which I finally managed to get my first Google internships. And I just want to give a quick shout out to Patrick, who was my first host, and he's in the audience today, so still supporting me as a colleague in a full-time position. And yes, I believe I attended most of the events organized by the Google University Outreach Program, and that was really helpful for me in securing an internship, and that's why I'm here today to kind of, promote it further and give back to the community.
And I was going to say, like, I also remember meeting and talking with you, Catalina. It was the Hopper Local Dublin event that like Niall actually organized over at Microsoft, a local variant of the Grace Hopper Conference for women in tech. And to me, this just reinforces how important it is to simply show up at events like this, and you meet some fantastic people along the way.
And another example of success, Hung is an example of somebody who was recruited because the program cast a wide net by reaching out to university and Institute of Technology across Ireland. Hung was enrolled at TU Dublin. For those who don't know, this was formerly Dublin Institute of Technology. And he did a SWE and SRE internship across 2 locations before joining SRE full-time in Dublin. And fun fact, I guess I did enough internships that I know everyone on this slide. We were in the same team during his SRE internship here in Dublin. He also just celebrated his 2nd Google anniversary a few days ago.
And he has 2 adorable dogs. We promise that's not why we hired him. He's awesome. Okay, so we also learned along the way that volunteers and role models are really critical to success. So one good thing to do is to activate recent grads who are working in your organization. So, host a panel discussion with people who graduated recently. We actually had interns and former interns, participate on a panel at the open house. And I think, Catalina, you were one of our panelists. We did this regularly, either as part of one-off events or as part of the bigger open house events. I think utilizing alumni networks is key. As this sort of momentum grows on a program like this, you'll have more alumni to draw from. So appoint alumni champions to work with their alma maters. Like, what you're really trying to do is inspire. I could do that. The goal is to help current students see what's actually possible and to see themselves in the volunteers that you send out to campus. For example, early on, it was all well and good to send me out to campus or to speak at our open house. However, we definitely got feedback that I'm not necessarily as relatable to students as someone like Catalina, for example. I was born in the US, even though I lived in Ireland for a long time. I didn't go to a 3rd level institution here in Ireland. I'm some number of years out of school. So again, not as relatable. But once we had catalyzed this circle of life, the people who we'd hired through the program now volunteering to support the program, it was much easier to have SREs who were more relatable to the students themselves participating in our outreach. And finally, the fourth point on this slide, it's really important to demystify what the role is actually like. And if you send engineering or SRE volunteers out to campus to talk about what they do, it really helps build that excitement about internships and full-time opportunities. And we have another one.
And now one of my favorite slides to present, because Daniel was actually the person that I talked to at my first Google Open House event, who then became basically my mentor. He was an older student at the university, and he always gave us tips how to prepare for the interviews, how to make your CV, and encouraged us all to apply for the positions at Google. And he was actually meant to be presenting today, but unfortunately he got sick, yet still he passes every opportunity he can to me when he can't do it himself. So I would like to read you in his own words the story of his journey. I decided to start a career in tech when I was 25. I applied for a Google internship in my first year of college, but didn't succeed. I guess a similar story so far. In the second year, I attended an open house event where I met Jennifer and learned a ton about the CV crafting and interview process. That helped me apply successfully for an SRE internship. I had a great experience, but then tried out being a SWE intern in London before deciding to convert as a full-time employee in SRE with the team I first interned with. As soon as I became a full-time employee, I was excited to pay forward the same opportunities that had been life-changing for me. And I began to run events with the university I had graduated from. So I guess that's when Daniel went back to Trinity College and encouraged everyone to apply and follow his path.
Exactly. So yeah, big shout out to Daniel, because this presentation, like, he put a lot of work into the slides and in prepping for this. So we wish he's here with us today in spirit. All right, so another thing that we learned along the way was that it's important to be a good partner while being willing to go rogue if you meet resistance. And what do I mean by this? So first of all, make friends with your staffing team. You're gonna need their expertise, you're gonna need their processes and their support in order to be successful. Recruit a recruiter to actually join your volunteer core team. So we found that worked out really well and helped us to plug into the right processes and systems. But again, ask for forgiveness rather than permission. Many large organizations have a dedicated central team that's responsible for university outreach, and it might feel a little uncomfortable or unusual for them that SRE is taking such a strong interest in campus outreach and recruiting. They might discourage you from spinning up a program like this. We got this, but I say do it anyway. That's all I have to say. If you encounter skeptics along the way, take time to understand why they are skeptical. So maybe they simply assume that because hiring numbers from these schools are low right now, they can never be higher. So bring your they might think there's no potential to improve, but bring your hypotheses, bring your experiments, and then bring the data to show small and steady progress along the way. And small and steady progress is things like an increase in applicants, an increase in the number of successful applicants. And before you know it, the staffing teams or the people whose day job it is to do this type of work, they'll be your biggest cheerleaders. Another thing that we learned along the way, and we've alluded to this already, we found that it's important to play the long game. You saw on the graph that I showed at the beginning of the talk that we've been at it for over 7 years. And that said, it's important to demonstrate shorter-term wins to keep your stakeholders happy along the way. And here's some ways that you can do that. So first, focusing on intern recruiting. As we talked about, the stakes and barrier to entry are lower. Yeah, and placements really give students this hands-on experience that will help them be successful in industry, no matter where they end up. Convert your interns to full-time hires. So whether it's after one internship, whether it's after 3 internships, or even a few years after graduation. We also found that it was helpful to promote what we call feeder roles. So SRE might not be the right role for every student coming out of college. They might not be interested, or they might need some additional experience before making it through the interview process. But are there other roles they may be more suited to now that may lead them to SRE down the road? And then finally, once again, communicate that incremental progress. If your stakeholders hear nothing, they might assume nothing is happening or that the program is not successful. So communicate that incremental progress in driving applications, number of interviews, interns hired, full-time hires, and do this at least once a year.
And now to prove all those points, Sophie is a great example of the effectiveness of the strategy of focusing on intern hiring. She completed 3 placements in different functions and different locations before joining Google SRE in Dublin full-time. And she's now also celebrating her 1-year Google anniversary this month. Cathal, I hope I pronounced that right. Irish names are particularly hard. He is another great example of the benefits of focusing on intern recruiting. He attended a campus tech talk about SRE at UCD. He also competed in the Ireland CPC competition, where the Google Tech IE program sponsored prizes for the winners. And then he did 3 internships in 3 different locations before taking a full-time role as a software engineer in Tokyo, which I'm a bit jealous about.
I was like, me too.
Yeah. While Cathal didn't end up in SRE full-time, we still consider his path to Google a win, since he got some exposure to SRE along the way that he can bring to his developer role.
The next one, there you go.
Sula is another great example of somebody who attended our events and that did a couple of internships as an SRE and a SWE. And a fun fact again, I was actually in the same class in Trinity with Sula, and we were in the same internship cohort. However, after graduation, Sula joined the Fitbit SWE team in London before moving back to SRE in Dublin. And even though she didn't join SRE immediately after graduation, this just serves to illustrate the point that all roads lead to SRE eventually.
People can't resist. All right, so what else did we learn? So, Catalina and I, we've implicitly shared some of this with the case studies we shared so far, but let me lay this out explicitly. You really want to take a broad view of success with a program like this. You want to take a broad view of success in terms of location. So, for example, we were focused on recruiting from schools in Ireland, but success to us was placing a student anywhere in the world, whether it's Tokyo, whether it's Dublin, whether it's the US, anywhere. We took a broad view of success regarding the role. So we were focused on recruiting for SRE roles, but we considered it a success if we placed a student in a wide range of engineering roles. We took a broad view of success regarding timing. So we were focused on recruiting new grads, but success to us was hiring any students who engaged with our programs, even after graduation. And then finally, there was an element of elevating the profession. So we were focused on recruiting for Google, but we considered it a success if a student pursued SRE as a profession anywhere. And again, I talked to a couple of folks who don't work at Google, but I've engaged with as part of this university outreach, and a couple of them have said, I might not be an SRE today had I not had that exposure as a student. I think you were saying that as well, right? Yeah. So anyway, so of the case studies we talked about, from a timing perspective, Stula, whose case study you just saw, she joined Google as a software engineer, a developer, but transferred to SRE a couple of years later.
Ocean is a great example of success by location flexibility, not to mention playing the long game. He was exposed to Google Tech IE outreach again at the Ireland CPC competition as a second-level student. And once he went to Maynooth University, he did a series of internships in different locations, including a remote internship during the pandemic with the team in London. And finally, he landed a full-time job at the office in Google Munich, and not here.
What I thought was remarkable about Oisin was so he competed in the All Ireland Coding Competition as a second-level student, like a high school student, and he joked apparently the prizes we sponsored were just for the third level, so he ended up getting a copy of the SRE book as opposed to the I think we had a Chromebook or something, but he didn't hold that against us at least. Aiden.
Another great example of success in the location and role flexibility category is Aiden. He did all his Google internships with SRE teams in Dublin, but eventually took a role as a software engineer working with the Fitbit team in Bucharest. I'm actually from Romania, as I said at the beginning, so I'm happy to hear that there are so many opportunities in my home country too. We were pleased to learn that Aiden also availed of a number of outreach programs like the Open House and the Algorithms workshops, and again, he competed in this competition that seems to be very popular in university.
Exactly.
I present you Laura Hennessy. She studied at Waterford Institute of Technology, highlighting the benefits of looking beyond the first or second most elite schools to find new graduate talent. Laura learned about tech roles at Google via the Open House event and did an internship in IT, working in TechStop, that is tech support for Googlers. She joined full-time working as an IT resident in TechStop, which is a great example of a feeder role. Laura is now a technical program manager in Google Cloud, and while she didn't end up in SRE, we are still delighted that she found her way to Google and definitely consider her story a win. And who knows, maybe one day she will come back and become a SRE as well.
Indeed. Emer.
And now our final success story, I would like to introduce you to Emer. She is my personal inspiration because I find her journey unique from the others. No, she didn't do 3 internships at Google. So Emer did an undergraduate degree in computer science. She attended the open house and 2 women in tech-focused events that we ran, but she didn't do any internship with Google. Instead, she decided to join full-time in an SRE team in Dublin upon graduation. But in her words, I think the open house and the above 2 events heavily encouraged me to apply and come to Google SRE. And then she worked with us for a few years, during the time where I got to know her as well, before taking a year off to complete a master's degree in computer animation and visual effects in the UK. And she completed a master's in early 2020 and decided to come back to Google Ireland given the uncertainties of the pandemic. She soon became an SRE manager, leading a team of Google SRE in cloud. Unfortunately, Emer left Google a few months ago to pursue her dream of working in animation, but she's now a general technical director for Walt Disney Animation Studios in Vancouver. So even though we miss Emer greatly, and I hope she's going to watch the recording, we are certain that she still continues to fly the flag for reliability at Disney, and we think it's still a huge win for SRE community.
Yeah, Emer made me promise to send her the video recording, so this one's for you, Emer. We do miss you greatly. But are, again, delighted that she's pursuing her dream. Okay, so as just a quick aside, we talked about taking a broad view of success. You may be wondering how broad of a view of success is actually encompassed in the little graph at the top right of the screen in our chart of our intern and full-time hiring. And this graph actually covers different locations, different roles, different timing, but does not include students who took an SRE role outside of Google. So just to give you a few more basic stats, so more than 50% of the internships that have been hosted to date were SRE internships. Approximately 50% of our full-time hires to date have taken SRE roles upon graduation, and all of our interns and full-time hires had a baseline understanding of SRE because that was the focus of our campus outreach. And finally, I want to share this final thing that we learned, and that is you want to make it self-sustaining. So in the beginning, back in year 1, I was effectively a single point of failure, a SPOF, if you will. But after that first year, I started to recruit additional help on the program, among current SREs, program managers in Google Ireland. And after a few years, that circle of life really kicked in. And I recruited people like Adam and Emer and Daniel and Catalina, who we're excited to get involved and are fueling the momentum that we're seeing today. So what started out as one SRE program manager with a passion for recruiting in their 20% time has effectively now been bootstrapped into a robust and sustainable SRE hiring pipeline. Our core team of volunteers now has 4 generations of SRE hires, where a generation is considered to be a student hired by the program in a given year, and they're now running and sustaining the program. In fact, I have to say I did such a good job of eliminating myself as a single point of failure that I was actually able to move from Ireland to Portugal about a year ago, and program momentum has continued unabated under Daniel's leadership, Catalina's leadership, and others that we work with. So yeah, excited about that.
So, returning to our €1,000,000 question, can we bootstrap new grads into new SREs? The answer is a resounding yes, and I think I am living proof of what's possible. And now let's conclude with a few key takeaways.
All right, so SRE, we know that SRE may not routinely be taught in the classroom, but that isn't an insurmountable obstacle to new grad hiring.
Awareness raising plus skill building equals a winning formula.
And again, can you bootstrap new grads into new SREs? And I would say yes, if you're willing to put in the effort. So before we open it up for a few quick questions, I wanted to take a moment and share a link to some free and public materials that you could use if you wanted to bring SRE principles and elements of non-abstract large system design to a university near you. So we've got our SRE classroom materials at sre.google/classroom. And I want to give a hat tip to Salim Virji, who he's actually presenting on Thursday and maybe in the audience today as well. But he's actually the driving force behind making these materials publicly available. And with that, thank you from Catalina and myself. We hope that you're inspired to invest the effort in building a new grad SRE pipeline for your organization. If you'd like to get in touch, if you'd like to talk more about this or other SRE education type topics, I'm pretty active on social media. I think Catalina is as well, especially LinkedIn, and we'd be happy to connect with folks in the audience.